This is Beyond the Sidelines with Ethan Schmidt and George Belecki, only on 4stateshomepage.com.
Well, welcome into Week 10 of Beyond the Sidelines. I'm Ethan Schmidt. He's George Belecki. And before we can get into talking about districts, we have to go back and we have to talk about a game of the week that saw the nation's longest winning streak come to an end.
It was Week 10 for Beyond the Sidelines. I mean, playoffs are around, but at Week 9, we couldn't have had a better matchup. Undefeated Cassville meeting undefeated Lamar. The collision course between these two Big 8 West schools, the first ever Big 8 West title game. I mean, you were there for it in the first half, down to the wire, very last play. Every single play mattered in this one for Cassville to come up on top 24-21. Couldn't have asked for a better first Big 8 West championship game.
Absolutely, and it started off and it was all Lamar from the very first kickoff. I say that because 99-yard return by Landon Hardman put the Tigers up 7-0 on Cassville. Cassville had nothing going on offense. Lamar turns around. Landon Hardman, well, he takes a pitch into the end zone. They go up 14-0. And then that was when we had a little bit of a trick play that happened, and it was one that Lamar fans will always remember, that the hook and ladder just never works right for Lamar defense. They think back to the CJ game, their last loss. There was a hook and ladder. And then when you look at this game, there was also hook and ladder. But really, that hook and ladder to me didn't really matter at that point. Yes, it got Cassville on the board. It may have gave them a little bit of momentum, but on the next drive, Landon Hardman was back in the end zone from 1 yard out, and it was 21-7. Really late in the first half was where you saw the difference, and maybe a little bit of a momentum shift was that defense started stepping up. They were able to take out Duncan Gepner a little bit quicker. Cage Jordan did have a few runs where he broke free, but there just wasn't really anything in the middle, and that's something Cassville's prided themselves on.
And they ran the hook and ladder right after a missed field goal by Lamar, so the Cassville defense gets the stop. They go in with some trickery, and I think the execution. Yeah, the defense had to click a little more, and they had to go into halftime, really make adjustments, but they had to have that now or never, that do or die mentality offensively. They got to have the defenses back. They get a stop against one of the best offenses in the state. Well, now the offense for Cassville has to step up themselves.
In which they did. The Cassville offense in the second half, we talked about a little bit with Adam Burns from the Joplin Globe. The biggest stat that came from that wasn't any offensive production. The biggest stat came from this line that I'm about to tell you here. Lamar had the ball only 3 times in the second half. They punted twice and threw an interception.
And the first possession for them in the second half came with 7 minutes into the third quarter. Last possession for them was just with 52 seconds. What Cassville did extremely well defensively, they went with a 5-man front. They ran a 5-5 defense because Lamar stopped splitting out wide. They want to go back to their nuts and bolts, have the spinning quarterback, all that misdirection in the backfield, but 5 guys at the line of scrimmage, 5 linebackers behind them, or they walk a safety up for Lance Parnell's guys. But they made that adjustment because it was head-on-head at the line of scrimmage, really make Lamar try to push them back. And outside linebacker, the athletes they have there, led by Anthony Tolbert, the Lamar couldn't really break anything to the outside. The successful runs they got were up the middle, but Cassville came out, changed everything, and it was just, from a physicality standpoint, Cassville was the toughest defensive front Lamar's faced all season long. And they go up, they hang up 24 on them. Big part, though, you got to go back to Lamar, because Cassville's defense came into this game allowing just 9 points per game, while Lamar scored 3 touchdowns on them. But it was just execution, discipline by Cassville, and their players just making plays, because on the final drive, they get the ball after the interception. Bowen Preddy breaks a long run, sets him up inside the 25, and that sets up the field goal. That, when I was watching the film, people there say it was a little bit of a fumble-rooski variation. It looked like Bowen Preddy was just dead in his tracks and then went misdirection and cut back. So I'm not sure exactly how it broke down. I wasn't there. But either way, just your players making plays, and I mean, gutsy calls by Lance Parnell. First score on the board for them, the hook and ladder. The way to set up the game winner for them with the fumble-rooski.
That's right. Cutbacks, counters, reverses. Coach Derek Krass used to yell at that to us at linebacker and cornerback, was watch CCRs every time that you're out on the field, and that's what happened there. Sometimes you forget about those little cutback lanes and things like that, but I think the biggest hero of this was the guy who missed a field goal that should have given Cassville a lead, Drake Reese, a sophomore kicker. He misses one from only 17 yards away, and I watched that, and it just kind of went into his lineman's feet when he kicked it the first time, which then we know the interception, the reverse play there, set up a 37-yarder, and then as cliche as it will sound, with ice in his veins, he just nails the game winner.
That's it. Like I said, the players are stepping up, making plays. Devin Bates hauling down that interception to set up Bowen Preddy, to set up Drake Reese. It was just one after the next for Cassville, for their guys stepping up. And like I said, now it's week 10 in Missouri, because now it's a playoff. So everyone's 0-0. For Lamar, Get that taste of a loss in your mouth and get it out. Be ticked off heading into district play, because a district title won't give them satisfaction. I know a semifinal win won't give them satisfaction. Right. What they're chasing now, instead of 58, 59, 60 in a row, get that out of here. Honestly, I'm happy that they lost that, because now they concentrate on what really people really remember, and that's 8 in a row.
8 in a row, absolutely. Then, as you mentioned, we are in districts. Let's move into our first looks at the districts, and we're going to start in Class 6, District 3, and Joplin will host. They got the second seed in there. They're going to host Kickapoo. Joplin comes in 7-2, Kickapoo 2-7, and the winner of this game will then face up against Lindbergh or Cedar Hill. So Joplin has a chance really to host 2 if they can get past Kickapoo, which last year they did get past Kickapoo.
And that's a beneficiary of them earning the 2 seed and really taking care of business in the regular season after those tough losses to Webb and Carthage, to go through, win how many they did in a row, finish with a record at 7-2. And with Kickapoo coming in, it's a down year for them. They're familiar with them from being in the Ozark Conference last season. Now they're Central Ozark. That's a Kickapoo defense that's allowing 30-plus points per game. The offense of Joplin, between Blake Tash, Zach Westmoreland, and Isaiah Davis, the 3 studs that they have at those positions, they're rolling too well to lose to Kickapoo. Lindbergh will come in. Now, that's a team that has a good defense and a good offense, but Joplin took care of business. Now we see, and I'm one that dogs Misha for having everyone make the playoffs, but now we see why the regular season pays off, because Lindbergh has to make that 4.5-hour bus ride from St. Louis to Jomo and try and knock off the Eagles.
Yeah, and that would be actually on November 2nd if it comes around. So Joplin has to still get through Kickapoo, like we mentioned, and we'll see what that happens. That will be this Friday night at Jung Stadium.
We're overexcited. We're looking ahead.
Yeah, we are looking ahead. Obviously, Coach Curtis Jasper and his group, they are not looking ahead. They're going to take it week by week if you ask them that for certain. We'll move on. Class 5, District 6. Carthage, hey, they get a bye week. So will Parkview and Nixa. They'll end up playing on November 2nd as well. Carthage will wait to face the winner of Republic and Branson on November 2nd. Coming into that game, I'm going to say, I'm going out on a limb, but I think Republic has a better team to beat Branson. So I'm thinking Carthage will probably take on the 4 seed. We don't know yet, but these are both teams that Carthage has run through on their way through the COC.
I'm sorry to ruin what we just said prior, but not looking ahead, this is Carthage's district to lose. I'm already looking at the quarterfinals for them. But when you look at all the teams combined in their district have a 12-24 record, Parkview being the best team at 5-4. This is the advantage you have of being in the COC and not just the Ozark Conference. They come through. I agree. I mean, I've seen the teams that they've played, like you said, with Branson in there, Nixa in the mix as well, that this will definitely be Carthage's. And I mean, the role their offense has been on, 190 points in their past 4 wins that they've scored. What they're looking at to me would be their next best test would be in the quarterfinals against Lebanon. Well, Lebanon hung up 70 points on Parkview, who Carthage may see throughout this bracket. So I think that just shows where the district is. I mean, Carthage has won how many in a row when it comes to 4 or 5 district championships? Right. It looks like it'll be the same old, same old. And this is coming with an offense, as I'm harping on how impressed I've been by Joplin, Patrick Carlton. His throwing ability continues to impress me week by week. The coaching staff loves having him. And you remember how we first found out about Pat was him getting those special packages, running the ball, scoring 4 rushing touchdowns. Well, Zeke Sappington's cast is off. That's not going to be, I expect the same thing from Coach Guidey. Worked Zeke in special run packages because that's his strength, while Patrick Carlton's strength between the two of them is throwing the ball. So this Carthage team will continue to roll.
Absolutely. They're on fire as they get closer to their district game, but again, they get a bye week. We'll move into Class 4, District 6. Start off here, we were battling, we were talking last week, there was a little bit of a battle to see who would get to face Webb City. It's not the greatest gift in the world to get to see who's going to play Webb City week 1 of districts, especially the way that they're rolling into this game. But Webb City, undefeated COC champs, they will get McDonald County next week. The winner of this game will then take on Carl Junction Hillcrest. We'll get to that in a minute. But Webb City, McDonald County, again, we're not trying to look through anything, but for Webb City, this is a game where they should be able to just keep going on.
That's what I would expect. Any top seed in any district, I think when it comes to districts, you are who we think you are and you are who you presented compared to the low seed. But for Mack County, just not enough of a versatile offense to test this defense. And same thing up front. They just don't have the skill guys on the outside. I think it will just be another Webb City roll through, take care of business. It's a playoffs now, and keep clicking.
Yeah, Oakley Rossler, the best player really on the McDonald County offense. He's really going to have to have the best game of his life if he wants to even try and keep his team really close to there. And you got a junior coming in at quarterback that's never seen Webb. So we'll see what happens in that game. We'll move on now. The 2-seed Neosho, they end up getting the surprise 7-seed. Monette, they won 4 of their last 5 games to get the 7 seed, including a win over McDonald County. Neosho, they'll host that as our game of the week as well for this upcoming week. Neosho, though, they came off a close one to end their season, but I don't know if their season ends to Monette.
I don't think so either, just because the role the defense has been on. They haven't let up more than 20 points in 5 weeks, and that 20 came to a Class 6 school in Joplin. Their toughest games were against Carthage, were against Webb. Well, those tests and being in the COC pays off now. Monette's a team that will pride themselves on running the ball in defense, just like the Neosho Wildcats. But why I like Neosho is because they have, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. Keep going out. This is the same team we've seen from week 1 that wowed us by opening up with the win, that closed week 9 in a close win. I mean, they just take pride in their defense. They have the big guys in the back of the end of that defense, like Trayvon Lett. Their corners can tackle. Their safeties can come up and make hits. They'll just put 5 dudes in front of you, say beat us up front. Offense will take care of the clock. Defense will keep them interesting. That's why I like Neosho in this one.
And they'll get the winner of Marshfield Ballsville. Let's move on now. The 4-5 matchup. Carl Junction coming off a loss to Joplin. They'll host Hillcrest, and of course they would get the winner of Webb City McDonald County. Carl Junction, though, they have to really dig deep in this one and bounce off that week and hope that something else arrives on defense to help them.
I think that's what I will give Carl the nod in this one, and I think that's what could push them forward. And it's obviously the team I'm more familiar with, that I've watched more. But Joe Kennedy, with him and Alex Baker both switching at quarterback, planned, not because someone's not playing well and the other is, but it keeps defenses on their heels. It was a tough test for Joplin. They saw it for one drive. They bounced back well, only let up 2 scores against the Bulldogs. That's why I think they'll continue to roll. I mean, just keep going with Joe Kennedy. Keep giving them the hot hand. They do have some few good receivers on the outside, but at the same time, that defense, the one that forces 6 turnovers, they did 2 of the past 4 weeks, both being wins. I think that's the same thing they can do against Hillcrest. It's what I'll always give the nod to is in a tougher conference like the COC, teams that are more tested.
Absolutely. Let's move on now. Class 3, District 6. Cassville, the 1 seed. They're 9-0. They're taking on an 0-9 Clinton team. I don't think there's going to be many people picking against Cassville. They'll face the winner of Seneca Hollister. We'll get to that in a second. But Cassville, they're going to continue to roll in. But this will be a tough district as we go through some of these teams later on here.
Because who they could see in the championship is that Mount Vernon team who's going to be taking on who could take on Reed Springs. But for Cassville, I mean, what more do you have to see than what we saw on Friday night to make any argument? Just what's being said, they have the studs where they need them in all particular spots. Anthony Tolbert didn't even run for that much and take a top rusher out of the game, and they still get a win over the best team in Class 2. Shows how good this Wildcat team is.
And then we'll move on now. You mentioned them, Mount Vernon. They're the 3 seed. They're 8-1. They had more points, but a head-to-head loss to Reed Springs gave Reed Springs. I don't think that's the coolest thing that they can do with seeding. I think that was a little dumb, but Mount Vernon's going to take that and use that for some fuel. They'll get Aurora in the first week, and a 2-7 Aurora team. I don't see Mount Vernon having much trouble with them, but I hope they're not looking ahead to maybe getting a chance to get that rematch against Reed Springs.
And that was a 1-point loss to Reed Springs, and something was going on that week because every time they scored, they went for 2. Didn't kick any extra points. I guess there's no kickers in Mount Vernon that weekend for them, but that's a 1-point loss. They have that head-to-head. I mean, like I said, I'll dog Misha for everyone making it, but they make the regular season matter for particular spots like that. But I think that's a matchup. That's the one I'm hoping for. And I saw Coach Cox last night at the Missouri Southern game. I asked him, hey, how's your district looking? He goes, looks like we got Cassville in our district. So he keeps it blunt. Not looking ahead, but that he knows that team is capable of making it there.
Absolutely.
Keep running the ball through Will Boswell. Averages over 100 yards rushing a game. He's got basketball players on the outside at receiver for the Mountaineers. They got the pieces I like to make that run and hopefully meet with Cassville in the championship.
And they got a gunslinger in Zach Jones to go along with that at quarterback. Moving on now, the 4-5 matchup, Seneca Hollister. Seneca, I feel like Seneca has this one as well, and I think they kind of want to get a rematch against Cassville as well because there's been 2 teams that have really played Cassville well. I guess Seneca not as great, obviously Lamar this past week, but Seneca, I think that they're kind of a little hungry as well coming out towards the end of their season. Maybe some rough patches along the way, but I think that they can knock off Hollister, even though Hollister did play Mount Vernon very close this past Friday night. But again, Seneca, I give them the nod in this one. I think they're wanting to get a chance to get a rematch against Cassville.
From what I saw from Hollister, I think it was more of a low night for Mount Vernon than a high night for Hollister in regards of how well they played. Same thing for Seneca. I'll go with the athlete and Gavin Klaus lead that offense. Can the defense step up in district play? But I still think they'll run into a short stoop, and their season will come to end a lot sooner than we predicted back in August.
That's right. Nevada, they'll be at Reed Springs. That's a 7-2 matchup. I don't know if Nevada will be able to handle Reed Springs. Reed Springs, they've had a few down weeks, but Nevada, they've struggled for most of the season. So we'll see that matchup as well. Again, that winner will get Mount Vernon and Aurora, or the winner of Mount Vernon and Arroyo. Let's go on to Class 2, District 4, Lamar. 8-1. It looks so weird on this paper to see an 8-1 Lamar squad, but they'll get Stockton, and I feel bad for Stockton because they're getting Lamar very angry. Winner of that one gets the winner of Sarcoxy Butler.
I feel bad for the whole district. I feel bad for Sarcoxy. I feel bad for Butler because they potentially could see the Tigers too, but Lamar will roll through, and that's a good Sarcoxy team. They have the good record, but they're still playing that small school schedule, a lot of Class 1 opponents, not a lot of Class 2. The problem, you have a pretty record, you guys get your confidence up, but when it comes to truly being battle tested and being equate with who you're going to see in the postseason, that doesn't happen with that schedule. So no matter what, I'm not trying to look ahead, Ethan.
Right.
No one looks ahead.
Right.
Lamar's going to win this district.
All right, El Dorado Springs, they'll get Warsaw in their first game as well. They'll get the winner of Versailles and East Newton. East Newton getting a 6th seed in this one. Sarcoxy, they'll get Butler. I feel like Sarcoxy, I think they'll at least meet Lamar in that next round. I don't think there'll be too much of anybody disagreeing with me on that one. Butler only 2-7, even though they're the 5 seed. And then East Newton at Versailles and East Newton, that would be a huge win for them, and it would be a great time to get the win.
Any win for East Newton is a huge win at this point with what they've been on. I mean, they've scored points the past few weeks. Let's find a silver lining for the Patriots. The offense is finding a way to get into the end zone, which I'm proud of them for doing. But
maybe they can pull it off against the 3 seed Versailles. So we'll see what happens there. Class 1, District 2, we'll move on here. Pierce City undefeated. They've already beaten Pleasant Hope, and they're going to see Pleasant Hope again in the first week. And I think we're kind of looking at that next possible matchup for them, which could be Thayer or Kabul.
And Thayer is coming in at 5-4, Kabul at 4-5, and Kabul's lost their last 5 too, so they've been struggling lately as well. And the big part, Pierce City are in that 1 seed. Those are long bus rides for Thayer and Kabul, whoever could pull out of that one. That's what I like. And I'm going to look ahead again. They could see Hayti in the quarterfinals.
Right.
And if you're an offensive coordinator or you love scoring touchdowns, because who doesn't, to have Pierce City and Hayti meet, I mean, that's what everyone likes to see. Because Hayti averaging 56 points per game offensively. For Pierce City, they light it up with Colin O'Hara, Trey Sagehorn, and another Clybaker. So I think it looks ahead for this point for the Eagles. And I'm not sure how it'll come out at that point. I think they both will be hosting throughout district. So who gets home field in that meeting will be interesting. But that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, Miller as well in that district. They'll take on Marionville. Miller, the 3 seed. On Class 1, District 3, Greenfield, they'll have Appleton City to start off with. Greenfield got the 2 seed in there. Not the best records when you look at this, but we'll have at least one Southwest Missouri group that we want to see, and that's 3 versus 6, Jasper versus Liberal. I don't see Liberal getting the win against Jasper.
How long can Jasper ride on the back of their running backs? I think it can be for a long time.
Let's move into Kansas now. We get our first chance to look at Kansas. We start in 4A. A little bit different this year with 4A. Pittsburgh, they got the 4th seed from the East in Class 4A. They'll take on Spring Hill. And don't want to look past that game as well for Pittsburgh, but their next matchup could be one of the biggest matchups they've seen all season. They played some really tough opponents this season because they could get the winner of Labette County and Bishop Miege.
The biggest opponent they seen was in Blue Valley North, but now they get Bishop Miege, who many believe is the best team in Kansas. 6A, 5A, 4A, go all the way down to 8-man. Bishop Miege in 4A is the best team. The Purple Dragons play with a lot of emotion, and it's what's given them the success, so I won't knock them for doing that. Don't get too emotional. Don't look past the opening round. It's the coaching cliche, but concentrate on it, because what you want to do is just go out, concentrate on the game plan this week. You don't get Bishop Miege if you don't beat Spring Hill. Simple as that.
Right. Labette County, Easton Dean will have to go out there and hope to do his best against Bishop Miege, which will be a very tough test for him, but that's a good test. Your last game possibly as a senior before you go on to Big 12 football. You get one of the best teams in Kansas, so we'll see how Easton Dean does there. Fort Scott, they'll host as well. I think Fort Scott, that should be a clear win for them. Chanute also in this 4A, they're advanced. They're the 11th seed in the East. They'll be on the road. And then Independence as well in the 4th seed. They're the 16th seed in the West, so Independence in Class 4A as well. Let's go on to Class 3A now. Galena 8-0. They're going to get Anderson County. they'll get the winner of Burlington-Frontenac. I think we want to see more than anything Galena-Frontenac again, and hope that Frontenac brings out a really good force that second time around.
Because will we see the Frontenac team that beat Parsons, or will we see the Frontenac team that met with Galena and was shut out and lit up by 40-plus points? That's what we want it to come down to, and that's what I'd like to see as well.
Absolutely. Moving on as well in 3A, Caney Valley, they'll be at Prairie View. Another big one, though, Parsons, they'll go on and they'll face Girard, and then they'll get the winner of Caney Valley, Prairie View. There's been some great stats on Parsons this season. The first time that they made the playoffs in years in football, and here they are, Class 3A, and they're what are they? They're the second seed in District 1 behind Galena, who is the 1 seed.
And they're led by the athletes, Daquan Johnson, Derek Williams, and this is Mark Freese's first year as a head coach too, coming back from being an administrator in the Parsons school system. So that's what's exciting about them to follow. They have the big play ability, and if they see a Prairie View team, that's a one-loss team, their one loss coming to Galena. So it's a tough path that Parsons does have in front of them.
Absolutely. Let's move on now to a Southeast. They'll be on the road at Ojai City, and we talk a little bit about dual athletes and players that make play on different sports. In Southeast last year, they had a really good baseball team as well. So some of those athletes that we're seeing in dual athletes is come over to the football season for them. They're 4-4. Riverton, they'll be at a buzzsaw in Silver Lake. I don't think poor Riverton, that's going to be a big one there.
Yeah, they made the playoffs.
They did, absolutely made the playoffs, but you draw 8-0 Silver Lake, so that'll be a big test for them. Kansas 1A, St. Mary's Colgan, one of the top seeds in this whole bracket from District 1. They were the #1 seed. They'll get Blue Stem in their game. Winner of that will face Hillsboro Yates Center. I think for St. Mary's Colgan, when you look at the bracket, this is a bracket that they want, because Smith Center, coming from the bottom of the bracket, could be a rematch of last year.
Exactly, and that's how it fell for them. It's funny because how the bracket breaks down. They can see Blue Stem, who's one loss or one win, came to Yates Center, and then Yates Center, who's one win, came and they dominated just Southeast and Northeast. So it's a good walk for them. Same thing, don't look ahead. But the teams in front of them, they won't be that heavy tested until late in the season. When Smith Center, if they're coming through a bigger buzzsaw of a bracket, maybe they'll be a little more banged up, a little more exhausted, overspent by the course of. But Smith Center's also a powerhouse. They know what it's like to make those deep playoff runs.
And don't forget, St. Mary's Colgan put up 70 when they faced Yates Center earlier this year. 70-15, I believe, was the final. And 8-man, Oswego, they'll be on the road at Udall. And then St. Paul, #1 seed out there. They were in the state championship last year in 8-man Division II. They'll get Hartford that game on Thursday. I also like to mention Galena is playing on Thursday night, and so is St. Mary's Colgan, so we get a little bit of action beforehand. In the 8-man division, I think both Oswego has a tough draw because it's 6-2 versus 6-2. We've seen some pretty big numbers that they've put up this year. I think Oswego could maybe pull up the road upset there. But St. Paul, I don't see them having much trouble either.
What I love about this time of year, it kind of brings me back when it comes to expectations, or just in general when you predict these games, it brings me back to mid-August, where when we're going through the preseason, going through the previews, you don't really know what any of these teams look like heading into the season. You're not sure who they're going to have coming back, seniors, production, coaching, all of that. Well, when it comes to playoffs, this is when you really figure out how good is your conference, how good is your area, because how battle-tested are you? Especially with Kansas's format, where you travel a little more in the opening rounds, you really see what corners and what areas of the state have you tested, how tough of a schedule did you play to the regular season, and did it prepare you for the postseason? So we break down all these matchups, you look at the records, points scored, defense, how they've shown up, how many close games, big losses, big wins, close wins they've had, but it all comes down to how prepared are you in the postseason, and player-wise, how interested you are to keep your season going, how much work you want to put in. Because for seniors, once it's done, it's done.
Absolutely, George. And now, normally we always turn to the Andy Searcy head, and we talk a little bit with him about predictions.
We might need an Ethan Schmidt head next season.
I won.
With a crown on it.
Maybe we'll pass a crown around between who has the best predictions. But last week was the final week, and Andy and I switched on one game. And so I ended up.
What was the game?
It was the Seneca-McDonald County game. Andy went with the Mustangs. I went with the Indians, and it got close there at the end. And I was like, "Oh man, here comes Andy."
You went with the Windians.
I went with the Windians, and they got me the crown this year. So regular season had the best record there. George and I will probably keep some predictions going with some of the local games. We'll tweet those out throughout the week and things like that, just to keep the flavor going here as we get into districts and things like that. Oklahoma still has 2 weeks of the regular season left as well. They'll play this Friday and next Friday. So in about 3 weeks on the show, we'll have a little bit more on Oklahoma. Yeah, absolutely. With some of our teams dwindling down at that point. So that's what the playoffs do. It's always a great atmosphere.
I mean, I'll look back to when we first started this show in the preseason episode. This is what it felt like again today.
Right.
Because same thing, we go through all the brackets throughout the state, seeing how everyone's matching up. That's why it's exciting. And I know you bring up the predictions. I want to keep them going. And I mean,
right.
If any coaches need bulletin board material, just let us know.
Yeah, let George know. Apparently, he's really good at making bulletin board material with his picks. But that's something that we were excited about this season. We've been really, really fortunate to have a really good regular season and leading into what we're hoping to be a very phenomenal district tournament, state tournament, and so on and so forth. Don't forget, we'll have top performers on Monday night, so we'll take a look at the top 5 performances from the previous Friday night. On Friday night, you can catch us at 10:15 with High School Game Night. We'll bring you the action from the games that we covered, all the scores from the areas as well, and we'll keep you updated on the next matchups that we'll see along the way with that. And don't forget, on Friday nights, Thursday nights, catch what Ray's bringing on the forecast, because he'll give you guys an update on if you guys need jackets, if you guys should be wearing boots, if you should be wearing pants, shorts, whatever it is.
Friday night fared fine.
Friday night, yeah, I was all right. It was a little rainy and misty down in Cassville, so that was a little weird. I wasn't expecting that. I did have a jacket on, though, and had boots on this time. I did not ruin a pair of...
Mama Schmidt raised you well.
That's right. I did not wear a pair of tennis shoes like I did at Lamar and kind of ruin them. So this week I listened to Ray a little bit better. But thank you guys so much for watching us. We appreciate everyone that tunes in to our show Beyond the Sidelines. Again, we're in week 10, the first week of districts in both Kansas and Missouri. 2 weeks still left in Oklahoma, and we hope that you guys continue to keep watching us. Thank you guys so much. You can only catch Beyond the Sidelines right here on 4stateshomepage.com.
This is Beyond the Sidelines with Ethan Schmidt and George Belecki, only on 4stateshomepage.com.